Regret does not come from the biggest mistakes. It comes from the moments that were small enough to ignore, but meaningful enough to stay. And the ones that stay the longest are not the things you did wrong. They are the things you never fully allowed to happen. That's the part no one explains. You don't carry regret because you failed. You carry it because something inside you knew there was more in that moment, and you chose not to go there. Not dramatically. Quietly. And that quiet choice is what returns later. It doesn't arrive the way you expect. It doesn't interrupt your day. It doesn't demand your attention. It waits. And then it appears, when nothing else is competing with it. Usually in the evening. You are sitting in your living room. The light is low. Not dark. Softened. Edges are less sharp. The kind of light that makes everything feel slower. The television is on. But the volume is low enough that it becomes background. Not something you follow. Something that fills space. You are not watching it. You are just sitting. Your hands rest on your legs. Still. Your body is not tired. But it is not moving either. There is no urgency in your posture. No direction in your attention. Just presence without purpose. And for a while, nothing happens. Just the room. The light. The faint sound of voices drifting from the screen. Then, something shifts. Not outside. Inside. A memory appears. Not fully formed. Just a fragment. A moment from years ago. You don't reach for it. It reaches for you. That's how you know it matters. Because random memories don't arrive like that. They drift. This one doesn't drift. It surfaces. A conversation. Someone standing in front of you. Saying something. Not dramatic. Just real. You remember your response. Or more accurately, you remember what you didn't say. And that's when you feel it. A slight tightening in your chest. Not sharp. Not painful. Just enough to interrupt the stillness. You shift slightly in your seat. Adjust your posture. As if movement might dissolve the feeling. But it doesn't. It stays. You look toward the television. Try to follow what's happening. But your attention doesn't hold. Because the moment is returning. Clearer this time. The room from back then. The tone of voice. The exact second you chose not to go further. Not to say more. Not to stay in that moment. And now, years later, it feels different. Not wrong. But incomplete. That's the word. Incomplete. You lean back slowly. Let your head rest against the chair. Your eyes stay open. But your focus softens. And that's when you recognize it. Not as a thought. As a feeling. This is regret. Not the kind you imagined when you were younger. Not loud. Not dramatic. Not overwhelming. Just quiet. Precise. And persistent. It does not accuse you. It does not shame you. It does something more unsettling than that. It shows you exactly where you stopped short. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. You sit there. Breathing slowly. The room hasn't changed. But your experience of it has. The silence feels deeper now. Not empty. Reflective. You reach for the remote. Lower the volume even more. Then, eventually, turn the television off completely. The room settles. No sound now. Just the faint hum of the house. You sit there. Inside it. And another memory appears. Different moment. Different time. Same pattern. Something you didn't say. Something you didn't try. Something you moved past, just a little too quickly. And each memory carries the same texture. Not failure. Not catastrophe. Just, something that could have been more, if you had stayed a little longer. That's what regret is made of. Not disasters. Not life-changing mistakes. Moments where you felt something real, and chose not to fully step into it. You exhale slowly. And a realization begins to form. This has been happening more often. Not constantly. But frequently enough, that you can no longer call it random. You stand up. Walk into the kitchen. The floor is cool under your feet. You open the fridge. The light turns on. You look inside. But you're not seeing anything. Because your mind is somewhere else. You close it again. Stand there for a second. Then turn back. Walk into the living room. Sit down again. The same chair. The same position. And the feeling is still there. This is how regret works later in life. It does not force itself into your attention. It waits for space. And now, there is space. Earlier in your life, this would not have happened. Not like this. You were too busy. Too occupied. Too focused on what needed to be done next. Regret may have appeared then, but it didn't stay. There was always something louder. A task. A responsibility. A problem that required immediate attention. And that urgency protected you. Not intentionally. Functionally. It didn't allow your mind to stay long enough to feel what was unfinished. But now, urgency has softened. The structure that once filled your time has loosened. And in that loosened space, something else emerges. Memory. You sit there again. This time, you don't try to distract yourself. You let it come. Because something inside you understands, this is not random. This is not weakness. This is not overthinking. This is something else. Something more precise. You are not being pulled into the past. You are being shown what was never fully lived. What you're experiencing is not random. It only feels that way because it is happening quietly. Without announcement. Without structure. Without anything to explain it. But there is a pattern. And once you see it, it becomes impossible to ignore. The next morning does not feel heavy. That's what makes it confusing. You wake up the same way. The same ceiling. The same light coming through the curtains. Nothing dramatic has changed. No emotional weight pressing down on you. No lingering sadness from the night before. But something has stayed. Not on the surface. Underneath. You sit up. Swing your legs off the bed. Stand slowly. Your body moves the same way it always has. But your awareness is different. You are noticing more. Not outside. Inside. You walk into the kitchen. The same routine. Water. Coffee. The quiet hum of the machine. You sit down. Take a sip. And something happens that didn't used to happen like this. Your mind goes backward. Not intentionally. Not searching. Just drifting. A memory surfaces. Smaller than last night. Less emotional. But still, clear. You notice it. Then another. Not connected. Not part of a single story. Just fragments. Moments. And that's when something begins to make sense. This is not random. This is not your mind wandering. This is a process. You are not suddenly becoming more regretful. You are becoming more aware. And awareness has a direction. It doesn't move forward first. It moves backward. To understand what was lived, before deciding what remains. You look at your cup. Steam rising again. The same image as yesterday. But it feels different now. Because now, you are paying attention to something you never had time to notice before. Earlier in your life, this would not have happened. Not in the morning. Not in the middle of routine. You were too focused. Too occupied with what needed to be done next. Your attention was always moving forward. Problem. Solution. Next step. Next decision. Next responsibility. That forward motion kept everything else at a distance. Including this. Not because you were avoiding it. Because there was no space for it. Now, there is space. And when space appears, the mind does something natural. It turns back. Not to trap you. To organize you. You stand up. Walk toward the window. Look outside. The day has started. People are moving. Cars passing. Someone walking a dog. Life is continuing. But your attention is split. Part of you is watching the present. Part of you is revisiting the past. And that split is new. You turn away. Walk slowly back into the room. Sit down again. And now, the memories don't feel like interruptions. They feel intentional. As if your mind is selecting something. Showing you something. Not everything. Specific things. You begin to notice the pattern. It is not every memory. It is not random. It is selective. Precise. Moments where something was left incomplete. A conversation that ended too early. A decision that closed something before it fully opened. A moment where you felt something, and chose not to follow it. And that's when the realization sharpens. Regret is not showing you your past. It is showing you what was never finished inside it. That distinction matters. Because it changes everything. You lean forward slightly. Elbows on your knees. Hands together. That posture again. The posture of recognition. And another thought appears. Clearer this time. I didn't miss those moments. I moved past them. That thought lands differently. Because it removes the idea of accident. You were there. You felt it. You just didn't stay. And that is where regret begins. Not in what you didn't see. In what you saw, and chose not to go deeper into. You sit there. The room quiet. And a more uncomfortable realization begins to form. Not everything that matters feels urgent in the moment. And because it doesn't feel urgent, you learn to move past it. But urgency is not the same as importance. And that is the mistake most people don't realize they are making. You were trained to respond to urgency. Deadlines. Responsibilities. Problems. Things that demanded action. But the moments that create regret later, rarely demand anything. They invite. Quietly. And quiet invitations are easy to ignore. You shift slightly. Take a slow breath. And then, the first brutal truth becomes clear. You did not miss the important moments. You deprioritized them, because they didn't look important at the time. That lands heavier than anything before it. Because it removes the comfort of, I didn't know. You knew something was there. You just didn't treat it as necessary. You lean back slowly. Let that settle. Because it doesn't feel like something you can move past quickly. It feels accurate. And accuracy is what makes it difficult. You look down at your hands. Still. Calm. And another layer begins to unfold. Regret is not about bad decisions. It is about incomplete experiences. That thought shifts everything again. Because it reframes the entire feeling. You are not being shown where you failed. You are being shown where you didn't fully live. And that is a very different kind of realization. You sit there longer. And the second brutal truth appears. Most of your life was built on doing what worked, not on exploring what mattered. That sentence stays. Because it explains everything. You built stability. Consistency. Reliability. You made decisions that made sense. Given the context. Given the pressure. Given who you were at the time. And those decisions were not wrong. They built your life. But they also did something else. They narrowed your experience. Not intentionally. Functionally. You did what was required. What was expected. What moved things forward. And in doing that, you often moved past moments that didn't fit that structure. Moments that were slower. More uncertain. Less efficient. But deeper. You sit there. Still. And the third brutal truth emerges. Regret is not pain from the past. It is awareness, arriving too late to change the moment, but still early enough to change you. That thought changes everything. Because it gives the feeling direction. It is not closed. It is not final. It is active. You are not being pulled backward. You are being informed. You lean forward again. Hands together. And for the first time, you don't try to explain it away. You don't call it overthinking. You don't dismiss it. Because it doesn't feel like rumination. It feels like understanding. And understanding does something different. It does not trap you. It organizes you. You begin to see your life differently. Not as a series of events. As a series of moments, some fully lived, some only partially entered. And the ones that were only partially entered, are the ones returning now. Because they were never completed. You take a slow breath. Let it out. And something shifts. Not dramatically. But enough. You are no longer asking, why do I feel this? You are asking, what is this showing me? And that question is where everything begins to change. Once you begin to understand it, you can't experience it the same way again. The memories don't stop. But they change. They become clearer. More defined. More specific. You are no longer just remembering. You are recognizing. And recognition has weight. You sit there. Still. The room quiet around you. But the silence is no longer empty. It's filled with something else. Clarity. You think back again. Not randomly this time. More deliberately. The same moment from last night returns. But now, you stay inside it longer. You don't move past it. You don't soften it. You don't explain it away. You look at it directly. The conversation. The person in front of you. What they said. What you felt. And the exact second, you chose to stop. Not because you had to. Because you decided to. That distinction is everything. You shift slightly in your seat. Your hands tighten for just a moment. Then relax again. And something begins to unfold. Not quickly. Not dramatically. But steadily. That moment was not just incomplete. It was alive. There was something there. Something real. Something that could have gone further. And you felt it. You knew it. Even then. But you didn't follow it. You stayed where it was safe. Where it was clear. Where it didn't require anything more from you. And now, years later, you are not remembering the moment. You are feeling the edge you didn't cross. That's what regret is showing you. Not the event. The boundary. The place where you stopped being fully present, and returned to something more controlled. More predictable. More contained. You lean back slowly. Let your head rest. Your eyes close for just a second. And when you open them again, the realization deepens. This is not just regret. This is grief. That word lands differently. Heavier. More accurate. Because what you are feeling is not about what happened. It's about what didn't happen. And more than that, it's about who you didn't become in that moment. You sit with that. Longer than you want to. Because it reaches deeper than expected. You are not grieving the loss of a situation. You are grieving a version of yourself that never fully existed. That thought cuts clean. Because it removes the surface layer completely. This is not about missing an opportunity. It is about not stepping into the version of yourself that the moment was inviting you to become. You shift forward slightly. Elbows on your knees again. Hands together. The same posture. But the feeling is different now. More focused. More precise. You think about other moments. Not all of them. Just the ones that stay. And you begin to see the pattern more clearly. It's not about what you did wrong. It's about where you held back. Where you didn't say what you felt. Where you didn't ask the question. Where you didn't stay long enough to see what could unfold. And each of those moments has something in common. They were not urgent. They were not required. They didn't demand action. They invited depth. And depth is easy to move past. When your life is built on momentum. You were moving forward. Solving problems. Handling responsibilities. Making things work. And in that forward motion, you often chose clarity over uncertainty. Structure over exploration. Safety over depth. Not consciously. Functionally. And that worked. It built your life. But now, those moments return. Not to accuse you. To show you something. You sit there. Still. And another realization appears. Quieter. But just as sharp. You didn't just move past those moments. You trained yourself to move past them. That thought lands slowly. Because it explains why the pattern repeated. It wasn't random. It was learned. You became efficient. Decisive. Capable. You learned how to move through life effectively. But effectiveness is not the same as fullness. And now, you are feeling the difference. You lean back again. Take a slow breath. And the second blade cuts through. Some of the deepest regrets in your life are not about what went wrong. They are about where you stayed smaller than you needed to be. That sentence stays. Because it feels true. Not in a harsh way. In a precise way. You were not incapable. You were not unaware. You were contained. By what made sense at the time. By what felt appropriate. By what fit the situation. And in fitting the situation, you reduced yourself. Just enough to keep things stable. Predictable. Controlled. And now, those reductions are visible. Not as mistakes. As absences. You sit there. The room quiet. And the memories no longer feel distant. They feel close. Not because they just happened. Because they were never fully completed. And unfinished experiences don't disappear. They wait. Until there is space. Until there is awareness. Until there is enough stillness to feel them. You look down again. Your hands resting together. And something else becomes clear. This is not about the past. It is about the pattern. Because the same thing is still happening. Even now. In smaller ways. Quieter ways. Moments where you feel something, and move past it. Moments where you sense depth, and choose simplicity. Moments where you could stay, but don't. And that realization changes everything. Because now, this is not just reflection. It is instruction. You are not being shown what you lost. You are being shown how you have been living. And that understanding is what turns regret into something else. Not something to escape. Something to learn from. You sit there. Longer than before. Not uncomfortable. Just aware. Aware that something has shifted. Not in your life. In how you see it. And once you see it, you can't return to how it felt before. Because now, you know exactly what regret is pointing to. Not your past. Your depth. And whether you choose to enter it. Once you see the pattern, it doesn't stay in the past. It follows you into the present. That's what changes everything. Because now, this is no longer about what happened years ago. It is about what is still happening, in ways that are almost invisible. You sit there. The room quiet. The memory has softened. But the understanding has not. It stays. Clear. Precise. You shift slightly in your chair. Not restless. Just aware. And something subtle begins to surface. Not another memory. A recognition. You have felt this before. Not years ago. Recently. In smaller moments. Quieter ones. Moments that didn't feel important enough to remember. But now, they return. You think back to a conversation from a few days ago. Nothing significant. Someone asked you something simple. You answered. The conversation moved forward. But there was a moment, just before you answered. A pause. A small opening. Where you could have said something more real. More honest. More, you. And you didn't. You gave the answer that made sense. The answer that kept things moving. The answer that fit the moment. And then, it was gone. At the time, it didn't matter. It felt normal. Efficient. Appropriate. But now, you see it differently. That was the same pattern. Smaller. But identical. You sit with that. Let it settle. Because it changes the direction of the entire feeling. This is not about regret as memory. It is about regret as behavior. And behavior can be seen. You lean forward slightly. Hands together. Eyes focused. And another moment appears. You were about to say something. You felt it. Clear. But you hesitated. Not out of fear. Out of habit. You filtered it. Adjusted it. Reduced it. Until it fit. And then you spoke. And what you said was not wrong. But it was not complete. And that incompletion is the same thing you felt in those older memories. The same edge. The same stopping point. The same quiet decision to stay within what is safe. What is appropriate. What is controlled. You exhale slowly. And the realization deepens. This is not something that happened. This is something you do. That thought lands with weight. Because it removes the distance. You are not looking at your past anymore. You are looking at your pattern. And patterns do not disappear on their own. They repeat. Until they are seen. You sit there. Still. And for a moment, something uncomfortable surfaces. If this is still happening, then nothing actually changed. That thought feels heavier than anything before it. Because it removes the illusion of closure. Those past moments are not separate. They are connected. By the same behavior. The same decision point. The same quiet reduction. You lean back slowly. Take a breath. And the first blade cuts through. Regret is not what you carry from the past. It is what you continue to create, when you choose comfort over depth. That sentence stays. Because it shifts everything forward. This is no longer about what you didn't do. It is about what you are still not doing. And that realization is not easy to sit with. Because it brings responsibility. Not blame. Responsibility. You are not being punished by your past. You are being shown your present. You stand up slowly. Walk into the kitchen again. The same space. The same movement. But it feels different now. More intentional. You place your hands on the counter. Look down. And another realization appears. Quieter. But just as sharp. You are not avoiding the big moments. You are avoiding the small edges, where something real begins. That thought changes everything again. Because it explains why the pattern is so consistent. You are not making large, visible mistakes. You are making small, invisible reductions. Again and again. And those reductions accumulate. Over time. Into something you can feel, but never quite name. Until now. You close your eyes for a moment. Take a slow breath. And the second blade cuts through. You didn't become disconnected from your life. You became disconnected from the parts of yourself that require you to go deeper than what is comfortable. That sentence lands hard. Because it removes the idea that something external caused this. It brings everything back to choice. Not conscious choice. Pattern choice. You open your eyes again. The room is the same. But your awareness is not. You are seeing something you've never seen this clearly before. Not your life. Your behavior inside it. And once you see behavior, you can no longer call it random. You can no longer say, that's just how things are. Because now, you know exactly where it happens. In the pause. In the hesitation. In the moment where something deeper is available, and you move past it. You walk back into the living room. Sit down again. More deliberately this time. As if you are choosing to be here. And that choice is new. You lean forward. Hands together. And for the first time, you don't feel stuck. You feel aware. Aware that something is repeating. Aware that something can change. Not automatically. Not easily. But clearly. Because now, you know where the shift has to happen. Not in your past. Not in your circumstances. In that small moment. The pause. The edge. The place where something real appears, and asks you to stay. You think about the next time it happens. Because it will. Not as a memory. As a moment. Someone asks you something. You feel something. A response forms. And then, there is that pause. That familiar hesitation. That moment where you usually reduce. Adjust. Move past. And now, you see it. You recognize it. And that recognition is the beginning of something else. Not a solution. A possibility. You are no longer blind to the pattern. And once a pattern is seen, it becomes a choice. You sit there. Still. And something shifts. Not dramatically. But enough. You are no longer asking, why do I feel this regret? You are asking, what am I doing, that keeps creating it? And that question is where everything begins to change. The pattern doesn't stop on its own. It waits. For you to see it. And once you do, something shifts. Not outside. Inside. The next time it happens, it won't feel the same. The evening returns. The same way it always does. Light softens. Shadows stretch. The room becomes quieter, without anything needing to change. You are sitting in the same place. The same chair. The same posture. But this time, you are not drifting. You are aware. Aware of the stillness. Aware of the space. Aware of yourself inside it. And that awareness changes the moment. Not dramatically. But enough. You reach for the remote. Lower the volume. Then turn the television off. The room settles into silence. You don't rush to fill it. You stay. Because you understand something now. This is not emptiness. This is space. And space is where something real can happen. You sit there. Breathing slowly. Not thinking about anything specific. Just present. And then it happens. A moment. Small. Unremarkable. Familiar. Someone's voice echoes in your memory. Something they said. Or something they asked. And immediately, you feel it. That same opening. That same edge. That same quiet invitation. It doesn't look important. It doesn't demand anything. It simply appears. And waits. This is where it always happened. This is where you always moved past it. You feel the instinct. To answer quickly. To stay within what is safe. To move forward. To keep things simple. That instinct is still there. It hasn't disappeared. Patterns don't vanish. They remain, until they are interrupted. And this is the interruption. You sit with it. Just for a second longer. Not forcing anything. Not trying to change everything. Just, not moving past it immediately. And in that second, something subtle happens. You feel more. Not in a dramatic way. In a precise way. There is something here. Something real. Something that wasn't fully entered before. You stay. Just a little longer. And then, you respond. Not differently in a big way. Just, more honestly. More completely. You don't add more words. You add more truth. And that difference, is everything. Because this time, you didn't reduce the moment. You didn't move past the edge. You stepped into it. Slightly. But enough. You lean back slowly. Feel your body settle into the chair. And something changes. Not outside. Inside. The moment feels complete. Not perfect. Not dramatic. Just whole. And that feeling is new. Because it doesn't come from doing something big. It comes from not stepping away. From staying. From allowing something to unfold, instead of closing it early. You sit there. Longer than usual. Not searching for the next thought. Not waiting for something else to appear. Just, being. And for the first time, the silence does not feel reflective. It feels settled. As if something that was unfinished, has been completed. Not from the past. In the present. You take a slow breath. Let it out. And the realization forms. Not as a concept. As a knowing. Regret was never trying to take you backward. It was trying to show you, where you keep stopping short. That thought lands quietly. But it holds. Because now, you understand what to do with it. Not analyze it. Not fix it. Not eliminate it. Use it. You stand up slowly. Walk toward the kitchen. The same space. The same movement. But it feels different now. More deliberate. More connected. You place your hand on the counter. Look down for a moment. And another thought appears. Clear. Simple. Enough. You don't need to change your life. You need to stop leaving your moments too early. That sentence stays. Because it is real. Because it is specific. Because it is something you can do. Not once. Again and again. In small ways. In quiet ways. In moments no one else will ever see. You walk back into the room. Sit down again. But this time, you are not returning to the same place. You are arriving differently. And that difference is where everything begins. You are not trying to become someone else. You are allowing yourself to be more present in the moments that already exist. And presence creates something regret cannot. Completion. Not every moment will be deep. Not every moment will matter. But the ones that do, will no longer be reduced. You will recognize them. Stay in them. Let them unfold. And that is how the pattern changes. Not by going back. By moving differently forward. You sit there. The room quiet. The night settled. And for the first time in a long time, you are not waiting for something to happen. You are inside what is happening. Fully. Enough. And maybe, that's what regret was trying to teach you all along. Not that you made the wrong choices. But that you left too many moments, before they had the chance, to become something real. You stand up slowly. Walk to the light switch. Your hand rests on it for a moment. You pause. Not because you are unsure. Because you are aware. Then you turn it off. The room goes dark. You stand there. Still. Not thinking. Not searching. Just, present. And for the first time, that is enough.